Okay, good evening sa lahat. So for tonight, we will continue our discussion on the remaining transactions from our journal entry exercise. So this is the part 2 of our discussion. Okay, so September 15 received $2,000 from the client who was billed on September 10. Okay, so for this transaction, we have received $2,000 cash from a client. Pero take note, it was from a billing from September 10 because if you have remembered in the previous transaction, we have provided services on account. So on September 10, nag-render tayo ng service pero hindi tayo binayaran ng client amounting to 3,000 pesos. So for September 15, there was a collection of money. So cash was increased and then our accounts receivable, our collectible have decreased. Initially, meron tayong accounts receivable na 3,000 pesos and since nakakolekta na tayo ng bayad, we have to reduce the accounts receivable by 2,000 pesos. So, cash, debit cash, $2,000 and then we have to credit accounts receivable $2,000. Accounts receivable is an asset and since babawasan natin siya, it demands a credit. Okay? To record collection of payment. To record collection. Okay? So, September 18, paid 500 for salaries. Again, there was that word paid. Meron tayong binayaran and therefore there is an outflow of cash. Cash is an asset, therefore when reducing it, we have to credit cash. Credit cash 500. And then this payment is for salaries. This is an expense kasi it's not explicitly stated if this is an advance payment. Therefore, we will be assuming that it is an expense. And according to our chart of accounts, for payment with regards to salaries, it should be debited to salaries expense. So, when we pay something in relation to expense, expenses increases. And since it demands a debit, therefore we have to debit salaries expense 500 as well to record payment of salaries. Next one, September 20. The owner withdrew 1,000 cash for personal use. So, pag meron tayong nabasa na nag-withdraw or withdrew yung owner from the business, again from the business, there was a transfer of cash from the business to the owner. Therefore, nabawasan yung cash ng business natin and since cash is an asset, we will need to credit cash $1,000 and we will be charging it to the owner's drawings. Owner's drawing. Take note, this is a drawing account and since nadagdagan yung pinalabas na pera natin, nagdagdagan yung withdrawal ng owner, then it needs to be debited. Owner's drawings $1,000 to record owner withdrawal. Okay? September 25, purchased equipment for 5,000, paying 1,000 in cash and the rest on account. Okay. We purchased an equipment amounting to $5,000 for this transaction. And then, we only paid 1,000 cash and then the rest, inutang na natin on account. So, for this transaction, our equipment was increased by 5,000. Our cash was decreased by 1,000. And then, The rest was on account. Therefore, there is an increase in liability. Nadagdagan yung utang natin. So, isa-isahin natin. Equipment is an asset, and since nadagdagan siya, it demands a debit. Equipment, 5,000. Next, nabawasan yung cash natin. Cash is an asset, and since nabawasan siya, it demands a credit. Cash, 1,000. And lastly, nadagdagan yung utang natin. Since it is a liability, it demands a credit. Accounts payable, 4,000. So, if you notice, the company received equipment amounting to 5,000. Nabawasan yung cash and then nadagdagan yung liability. So, to record payment of 4. Payment for equipment. Hindi, to record purchase of equipment pala. Nevertheless, let's just stick with this one. And then, okay, last two more transactions. September 28 paid 250 for office supplies previously purchased on account. If you can remember, meron tayong purchases of office supplies in September 5. Meron tayong utang na 500. So, on September 8, nagbayad tayo but we did not pay it in full. So, there is payment of cash. So, nabawasan yung cash natin. Therefore, it needs to be credited, 250. And then for our debit, we will be reducing our accounts payable. Since nagbayad tayo ng 250 sa utang natin, nabawasan yung cash natin, and then at the same time, nabawasan yung utang natin. And since accounts payable is a liability, when we reduce a liability, kailangan natin siyang i-debit. To record payment of debt. And then lastly, for September 30, paid $200 for utilities. So utilities are expenses related to electricity, water, internet. So because of the word paid, naglabas na naman tayo ng pera and it demands a credit. And those 200 cash will be charged to utilities expense. Utilities expense. Nadagdagan yung expense natin in relation to utilities, and since this is an expense, an increase should be debited. To record payment for utilities. Okay? So far, I hope I was able to add value sa inyo for this part 2 discussion, and in our next video on this accounting cycle series, we will be proceeding with the discussion of the ledger or the T accounts. That's all for tonight, and mayong gabi sa tanan.